Hey everyone, welcome to Amberg Acres. My name is Mark and I'm going to be your tour guide for today. So as you can see, the beans are doing beautiful. We've had some rain now here in June. What we're going to do is later on in this video we're going to share our game camera pics with you for the month of June. But before we do that, I just want to give you a little tour around, show you the food plots and how they're growing, which ones I think are doing good, which ones aren't doing good, and then we'll end the video with the game camera pics. But anyhow, the beans look great. They're just doing wonderful since we got the rain. I had fertilized them back in beginning of June, probably, I think it was. Once that rain came, that fertilizer soaks into the soil and just gives them a boost, you know. So I'll probably wait another week, and then I have a product called Jolt that I mix in with my spray, with my weed spray, and I'll probably come over here and I'll spray one more time, and that'll probably be it for the summer. So it is the end of June right now. I got my birthday is July 1st. A couple of days I'll be 65. So we're gonna take you around here and show you some of the other places we planted. All right. So first we got the clover. All right, it's doing fine. I sprayed it with grass only back, oh god, that's probably the beginning of June also I did that. But you can see there's other weeds growing in there with it, and those weeds are hard to get rid of, you know. They're just tough to get out. This kind of stuff here, you know, I don't know what it is, but it's hard to get that stuff to die, you know, and get out of it. Now I went and spot sprayed dandelions, but you can see I missed a whole bunch. You get over here, we got more of some other type of weed growing. Here you can see where I did some spot spraying on some bigger weeds. Those were probably some big dandelions that I spot sprayed. So it takes a while for the clover to grow back into there. And you can see right around where I sprayed, you know, your clover kind of gets hit a little bit, but it will eventually grow back, you know, the clover will. So there out in the middle, you see I got a couple of them milkweeds growing. I got to get them sprayed. So yeah, I don't know what to say about clover, except that this is the way it is. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to spray these milkweeds and some of these other weeds that I can spot spray, and then I'm going to come over here and mow it once and then see what it does for the rest of the summer, you know, see if that boosts it up and gets it to grow back better. So this is behind the Pablo stand. This was where it was so wet back in spring. I had that leftover seed from Whitetail Institute, the power plant. So I went and threw that down in here, and that's growing beautifully. And that was 2-year-old seed. Well, maybe even more. It was at least 2 years old that's been sitting in a bucket. And that stuff grew pretty good. Power plant is basically beans and sunflowers and a couple other things mixed in. So that's growing pretty good. It gives them something to eat down here behind the Pablo stand. So this is the corridor where we planted Hot Chick and Comeback Kid from Domain Seeds. Way back in spring we did this, when there was snow on the ground yet. We dragged it and threw the seed down. It's growing pretty good. It actually looks pretty nice. It's not as thick or as heavy as the clover patch, but the clover patch has been there for 5 years already. So we'll see what it looks like next year, you know. I mean, it seems to be doing okay. And this, again, maybe I'll come in and mow this at some point, and it'll just take off by itself then, possibly. So we'll walk up here to this little hidey hole I made this year. So I'm looking at this for the first time since I threw seed down how many weeks ago. So this is another spot that was so wet that I got stuck and buried the tractor in here. So I just came and threw some of that power plant down in here, and it obviously did not take as well as over in that other area. Now over there I was able to go in there with the plow and plow a little bit, so it had some grooves to fall in. Here it did not. Was not able to get in here and run my plow through here a little bit to make some grooves. So this stuff was just kind of sitting on top of the soil, and I pushed it in with the tires of a four-wheeler. So obviously that's the difference, you know, it didn't have good ground contact or whatever. But some of it is growing, so we'll see what this turns out to in fall. You know, maybe I'll throw some rye grain or something else down in here, because I can't drive in here. Well, I probably could now, but not in spring. I can't get in here to plant. So well, let's go over here and look at the other side, because I went all the way around with that comeback kid stuff. Yeah, so over here on this side, I don't think it gets as much sun because we got these huge trees here, but it's growing. I mean, you can see it's all growing all the way around there. It just doesn't look as good as the other side over there. And this may be a little sandier here. I don't know, you know. I don't know if that makes that big of a difference or not, but it probably does. So one of the things I can try is fertilizer, you know, and get some fertilizer in here and see if that makes it, you know, makes it grow a little better towards fall. But other than that, it's going. As long as it's there, it'll come back next year, right? And grow even more. So the other thing we did is we almost have Barb's craft room finished. So I'm going to take it back and I'm going to show you the inside of the craft room yet. And then we'll share the rest of these the videos with you for the deer picks. So here's Barb's room. You saw the cleat wall video. We made the cleat wall. So then we started on this end by the windows, and I put up the 2 pieces of pegboard and the wainscoting across the bottom, and she liked it so much she wanted me to continue. So we did the whole room that way. Pegboard all along the wall, wainscoting across the bottom, and then this wall also we did the same way. So all I got to do now is get a door in here and then finish up these 2 little spots here, and this room will be finished. And it looks really good. I think this turned out fantastic. She'll be real happy working in here. She can sit right there at her desk and look out the window, you know. I think it just turned out great. Now for those of you that don't know me, many years ago I used to build canoes, cedar strip canoes. So this is my wife and I in the Ozaki press back in, boy, what year was that? 2004 or 2005 maybe? Somewhere around there. Alright, so we're going to let you watch the rest of this video of the deer picks from June. If you like these videos, make sure you subscribe and give me a thumbs up and keep watching. Thank you.